The case of the Lake Poopó, drought and pollution in Bolivia. The Lake Poopó is located at an altitude of 12,100 feet above sea level, in a shallow depression in the Andean highlands in the Mutabi canton in the department of Oruro, Bolivia. The lake is located between two other areas of importance, the Lake Titicaca at the north and the Uyuni Salt Desert at the south. The lake is connected with the Ururu Lake to the north. 30 years ago, it was once Bolivia's second largest lake, with an extension of 1,200 square miles. Today, it has dried. The Desaguadero River is responsible of more than 65% of the sources of water for the Lake Poopó, which are transported from the Titicaca Lake, which is fed by glaciers. In addition, other smaller seasonal streams and rivers flow into the lake. The basin receives relatively low rainfall and has high evaporation. On average, Lake Poopó receives 15 inches per year of rain from November to March. The other 7 months are dry. As a result of its geographical conditions, the lake is a terminal, endorheic, saline, and shallow lake, very susceptible to disturbance. The Lake Poopó also carries cultural significance to the history of Bolivia. Pre-Hispanic cultures, the Aymaras and the Urus, all inhabited this territory. During the reign of the Incan Empire, there was a civilization called the Tiahuanaco that thrived around the lake Titicaca and Poopó in 1500 BC. Although the Incan Empire was wiped out by the Spaniards as they invaded, there are still indigenous people who depend on the health and availability of the water within the Lake Poopó. The Urus Muratos, also known as people of the water, have been considered to be one of the oldest ethnic groups in the continent. Urus' presence in the area dates back to the years 2000 BC to 1500 BC. Their way of life is based around hunting and gathering, and reliance on fish in the lake, which in this case is no longer viable as a way of life, and they are being forced to adapt to a new way of life. In 2002, the lakes Poopó and Ururu were designated a Ramsar site as a result of its representativeness of the high-altitude Andean wetlands of the Puna ecoregion. Around 76 species of birds have been reported in the area, including 3 species of flamingos. Similarly, endemic and endangered species of fauna and flora are present in the area, including vicuñas and pumas, as well as cactus belonging to the Opuntia and Trichocereus genus.
Lake Poopó is confronted with water scarcity during the dry season, periodic and heavy rainfall during the wet season, water quality issues that can be attributed to anthropogenic and natural reasons, and climate change factors. There are many consequences of the drying out and pollution of Lake Poopó that range from environmental devastation to cultural discrimination. With the drop of water levels came a severe change in the environmental health of the lake and the surrounding environment. Lake Poopó faces issues related with tailings and mining residuals in abandoned dikes, which result from unregulated mining activity. These residuals reach the water flows without treatment. In addition, it has a history of disappearance as the lake has gone through cyclic flooding and drought in previous years. In 1994, the communities of the lake witnessed a drought event that enabled them to even bike around the dried lake bed. Although it took several years for the water to return to previous levels, it wasn't for another couple years after the water returned that the ecosystems recovered. Nevertheless, in December of 2015, the drought of the lake has caused massive fauna die-offs, including the 2014 incident which surrendered millions of dead fish and thousands of dead birds. Waterfowls and 3 species of flamingos have perished, starved, or left the area. In 2014, the government declared Lake Poopó a disaster area. Although some rains enabled to refill areas of the lake, Lake Poopó dried out again in 2017 as a result of high evaporation and low inflows of water. What used to be a lake bed is now a dried out desert, which leads to dust storms and heavy soil erosion. The dryout and pollution of the lake has caused not only challenges to the environment, but also the socio-political environment in the watershed. The indigenous Urus Muratos historically lived on the east bank of the lake. And as the lake continued to dry out, they were facing increasing discrimination and pressure from the expanding quinoa cultivation. The loss of their livelihoods forced them to change in lifestyle. Those who have moved have started to work on sheep and cattle herding, low-skilled construction jobs in Cochabamba, textile and garment factories in Chile and Argentina, day-paid labor, mining of tin, lead, silver, and other metals, and salt mines. The migration of the Urus has led to struggles of land and discrimination from the Aymara, the largest local ethnic group, which has forced the Urus to lose their language and now speak Aymara. Currently, close to 1,000 Urus from a population of 5,000 live around the lake. The Urus Moratos that remain are attempting to grow food and raise animals, although it is out of their realm of expertise.
The proximate causes that led to the drought of Lake Poopó include water diversion from the Despodado River and other streams that fed into it to support agriculture, irrigation, and the mining sector. Although monoculture of the quinoa industry that is moving in is heavily contributing to the soil erosion through unsustainable farming, the mining industry's use of the tributary water can be seen as a contributor to the loss of water and soil. The proximate causes that have led to the pollution of Lake Poopó include the unregulated discharge of mining tailings that bring lead, cadmium, arsenic, and other heavy metals and sediments. A study of water quality in 27 sites in the Lake Poopó basin found that 78% were unsuitable for human consumption without significant treatment due to high levels of metals and or salt that corresponds to 90% of groundwater sites, 67% of surface water sites, and 100% of thermal water sites. In addition, many of these waters were not recommended for agriculture or for animal husbandry. The ultimate causes for the drought of Lake Poopó include the effects of climate change on the glaciers that feed into the lake Titicaca, the use of dams for the storage of water that has evaporated, increase of atmospheric temperature that leads to higher evaporation rates. Climate change is attributed as one of the main reasons for the drought, but the other climatic condition for the drought is the El Niño phenomena. The ultimate causes that have led to the water pollution of Lake Poopó include lake erosion and higher accumulation of sediments coming from the Atacama Desert as a result of the corrosion from grass and shrubs to quinoa plantations, which remains clear during sowing. Next, we will explore possible actions that can be taken to restore Lake Poopó. One action that can be taken by the mining industry is the adoption of technology such as cleaner water technology. With Bolivia's growing economy, environmentally friendly options are more attainable than ever before. The service provides pump stations, washdown bays, refueling bays, bulk diesel storage, and chemical storage, to name a few. Updating and implementing more sustainable equipment will greatly reduce the water pollution as well as water demand. Rules and regulations play a major role in accomplishing water sustainability goals. In order to ensure water availability, quality water, soil maintenance, and crop production, we must adopt the following suggestions. Maintaining and updating land and water information such as flows, quantity, erosion vulnerability, and runoff. Providing incentives for mining companies and agriculture producers to adopt more sustainable practices, increase and improve the central water management of the watershed, opening the control structure to allow the water to flow into Lake Poopó, a considerably larger flow than at present. Quinoa has led to the boosting economy growth and has long been a part of their culture, although more recently, this is at the cost of the land. The increasing demand for quinoa has resulted in a rapid increase in monoculture and consequently soil erosion. Due to the low depth in the highlands as well as the lowlands, the soil is easily eroded, Coupled with the monoculture, this creates an uncanny obstacle in agriculture productivity. This soil burden can be alleviated and or solved through crop rotation. Growing crops such as potatoes, corn, rice and grains, vegetables and fruits will allow a reduction of soil erosion and an increase in soil fertility and crop yield. Bolivia has suffered from the worst farming technology in South America, according to the Library of Congress. Overall, efficiency of irrigation systems in Bolivia varies from 18 to 30% in traditional systems, which leaves room for an extreme amount of improvement. With great water efficiency technology, water consumption is reduced proportional to the quantity it is improved by, and updating farming practices will allow for a decrease in land conversion as the current land becomes more productive. In addition, recycled water can be implemented into the Bolivian agriculture practice. This change will allow irrigated agriculture to be expanded by 8 to 10% simply by reusing their water. Education is a key component in the structure and operation of most things in life. In Bolivia, environmental education seems to be lacking, or at least not in the forefront of their minds. Poverty reduction and alleviation is at the top of their priorities. However, the lack of environmental focus may cause detrimental effects for their long term, as we can see with Lake Poopó. For both the farmers and the indigenous people, information on local water management and watersheds characteristics is a start in the right direction. The program will include water balance as well as the importance of the river tributary. Eventually, farmers will be educated in water efficiency and the cost benefits to surprisingly using less water, and the people will become educated on the components that contribute to Lake Poopó.
After researching the current state of affairs, assessing the causes and consequences of the dry up of Lake Poopó, and identifying many possible solutions to help remediate the disappearance of the lake, our team has assumed the responsibility of a consulting firm, and we have chosen to focus on the agriculture industry. The following recommendations are chosen to provide the greatest economic growth for the agriculture industry while improving the social and environmental situation of Lake Poopó. Acting as a consultant to the agriculture industry, the profit and sustainable growth both economically and environmentally is vitally important to the success of the agriculture business now and into the future. Our recommendation to increase profits is to begin implementing corporate social responsibility, or CSR, which is a concept which consists of a conscious, sustainable action oriented not only on economic aspects, but also takes into account social and environmental substances associated with the company's environment. In other words, to continue the economic growth of the agriculture industry, we suggest focusing attention on improving the social and environmental community that surrounds the quinoa production growing around Lake Poopó. CSR is the industry's assurance or obligation that will be made to contribute toward the growth and the development of local community, working force, their families, societies, economy, and finally to contribute to the whole country as agriculture continues to grow for many years. We believe the dedication of the industry to becoming socially responsible will continue the growth of the market and profits of the industry. When other countries expand their imports of quinoa, the idea of buying a socially responsible product will drive the profit and the demand for sustainable growth to increase. As part of the CSR, we recommend implementing sustainable water management, which will encourage the use of less water, which leads to greater savings and increased profits. Additionally, with the use of less water, the agricultural industry will be seen as part of the solution rather than the problem, and we hope to see a recovery of Lake Poopó. As the lake returns, the social and environmental community of the lake is also expected to return, therefore fulfilling the obligation of the quinoa industry to contribute to the growth and development of the local community. Our recommendation for the most applicable and best agriculture improvement is to begin sustainable water management for the agriculture industry. As you can see from the pie graph above, agricultural practices have many different water inefficiencies when it comes to delivering the water to the crop. Listed here are some of the components of our proposed sustainable water management plan. Localized irrigation is widely recognized as one of the most efficient methods of watering crops, as it applies the water to individual plants, more specifically into the root system. by means of plastic pipes, usually laid on the ground. This practice would be a large efficiency improvement in the arid conditions that cause the drying of Lake Poopó. Similarly, subsurface drip irrigation routes water to the plants through underground pipes that require lower pressure in the pipes, using a soil matrix suction of water to the plants with low evaporation. Fertigation is a process that diminishes the costs of fertilizer, as the application of fertilizers are through the irrigation system, using a localized or subsurface drip irrigation. This process reduces the amount of fertilizer that is lost to agricultural runoff, protecting Lake Poopó from the introduction of excess nutrients. Next, deficit irrigation practices are increasingly important in arid regions, such as Lake Poopó, as they consider the available water for agriculture and regulate the irrigation to sustain some degree of water deficit and yield reduction to increase water use efficiency of the crop by eliminating irrigations that have small impact on the yield. Many times, the resulting yield reduction may be small compared to the benefits gained through diverting the saved water to irrigate other crops that would otherwise have no water availability. The final two components are indirect water management, as they improve the soil condition and its ability to store water without releasing it to evaporation. Crop rotation is a widely used technique for soil conservation, as certain plants remove nutrients while others return the nutrients back into the soil. As discussed previously, this rotation not only reduces the soil erosion, but also increases the soil fertility and yearly crop yield. Along with crop rotation, we suggest introducing multiple varieties of each plant to preserve the genetic biodiversity, as well as prevent large-scale disease and pest die-offs. Other soil conservation practices include improved tillage, like no-tillage shown here, as well as mulching and appropriate weed control techniques to increase the soil retention on the agricultural lands, reducing overall maintenance of the fields. In summary, our consulting team will focus on the agricultural industry, introducing a corporate social responsibility with a heavy focus on sustainable water management to increase agricultural profits while benefiting the local communities as well as the environment of Lake Poopó. Reconsidering our initial vision, we chose to define the audience as the agriculture industry representatives. Furthermore, defining ourselves as a consulting firm intending to approach industry representatives with CSR initiatives allowed for a more targeted approach to proposing solutions in order to solve the issue. This decision was made based on the specific context in the case of Lake Poopó and the role of the agriculture industry in the drying of the lake. We believe the point in our initial vision that buy-in from governmental officials, the indigenous population, and the local agricultural industry in order for the proposed solutions to work was crucial to retain. This point justifies our choice to be a consulting firm, because ideally we can serve to bridge locals, government officials, and industry stakeholders through the introduction of CSR practices to the agriculture industry. This would serve as a means of economic development for the industry, and the government would benefit from increased revenue as well. Furthermore, employment opportunities would increase for local citizens in the region and hopefully encourage migration back to the area. Understanding of all the key dimensions of the issue and how they correlate was paramount in the reevaluation of our initial proposed solutions. Thank you.